Hey, thanks so much for tuning to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Today is Monday. Happy Monday, everyone. We are diving into the book of Exodus, continuing our series going chapter by chapter. If you happen to miss the message yesterday at Shrewsbury Assembly, I highly encourage you to go back and watch it as Pastor Sarah dives into Exodus chapter 3 and 4 and talking about how God spoke directly to Moses and see how Moses responded to that. Highly encourage you to go back and watch. And if you watch it, you liked it, encourage you to share it, just like these daily devotionals. If you like it, hit like, hit share. We'd love this content to go to as many people as possible, encouraging people to not just get into the Word of God, but allow the Word of God to transform them and how we treat one another, how we respond to things, how we love one another. So to give you some context to where we're at today, we're going to be at Exodus chapter 11, but we've been going through these plagues that after God spoke to Moses saying, hey, you're our deliverer. You are the guy who you're going to send to Pharaoh, and they're going to say, hey, let my people go. Pharaoh didn't do it, so it was time and time again that God was sending these different plagues, and Moses continued to speak to Pharaoh and be his mouthpiece, Moses and Aaron. And Pharaoh kept on hardening his heart. So it was plague after plague after plague. And we see God's patience through that after all these plagues. But one thing, too, that Pharaoh wanted to mimic God. He wanted his sorcerers, wanted these magicians to mimic what Moses and Aaron was doing. And a lot of things they could do. And they got to the point where I think it was the gnats, where God sent these gnats, and they were as numerous as the sand, and they were everywhere. The magicians were like, this is clearly the hand of God. And that is something that we have to recognize and understand, is that God is more powerful than any other sorcery, any other evil spirit. And we also have to recognize is that there is power in evil, but we have to recognize that that power is limited, but the God that we serve is limitless. All right. And so that's what we'll obviously, that's what the highlight or the challenge is for today as well, that God is working in and through our circumstances. And so this last plague here that God speaks to Moses and Aaron to give to Pharaoh is that there's going to be the firstborn of every family is going to die if they don't, let the people go. And Pharaoh hardens his heart. And this is what Moses says to Pharaoh, starting in verse 6, says, there will be a loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been, ever, and will ever be again. But among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any person or animal. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. And the challenge, the encouragement for today is this. See, our circumstances can seem unfair. Our circumstances can seem fearful. This not knowing, or if somebody does something to us, we're like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Or we see other evil people be blessed and prosper, or like, what's going on there? And we have to understand is that if evil people are prospering, they've already received their reward, and they're not. That's a false sense of success and fulfillment. But what God is saying here is that there's a distinction between evil and good, and how God, he's going to work in and throughout his people. And what I love about what the Word of God says right here is that not even a dog will bark. There's going to be a silence. There's going to be a stillness. See, when the wrath of God comes against the Egyptians, there's going to be a wailing like you've never heard ever before. But there's going to be silence. There's going to be peace among the Israelites. We can recognize that we can have the peace of God regardless of what our circumstances may go through. Because our faith, our peace, our joy, our love does not need to be dependent upon circumstances. But what they can do, what we should do, is depend on God, who is in and through it all. And we can experience a peace. See, he is in the silence. He is in the stillness. What we need to do is recognize that he is there. And so some encouragement for you today is that maybe you've been so busy lately, you haven't recognized the still small voice of God. Take some time today to be silent. Take some time to be still and see what God has to speak to you today. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth.